information that's stuck somewhere and get it into the place where the teacher is. I think it's unrealistic to expect that we will get all teachers to go to the same place. And so once we accept that reality, that all the teachers are not going to pile onto one place, especially not across multiple states, we need to figure out how to get the information from where it is to the place where the teacher is. And that's really all we're talking about. So as you start to dig into this, you say, look, this sounds like a pretty simple thing. And that's right. This is not complex. This is just a matter of a lot of agreements to move this kind of content around. All right. So again, NSDL, this is just giving you some examples of some of the kinds of resource information that might be suitable for a learner. It's grade level, it's high school, it's science. Right? Just knowing that little bit of information might tell somebody as they're trying to connect to this. Of course, as we get to Common Core, we'll dig a little bit deeper. But Commons is the same resource. This is the point, is these guys are sharing the same resource in different ways. And this is an example of the crazy things that the federal government can make available. It's a 3D model of the thing, so if you actually want to bring it into a modeling program, if you have that capability in high school, the kids can actually redesign it, put the wheels on it, and whatever they might do to explore its properties. So this is about illuminating the social life of a resource. These are the different places where people can go, and we want that information moving not just in these stovepipes inside these different sites, we want them connecting to each other. So I'm going to move a little bit more quickly, but I wanted to deal with Common Core, or I want to deal with standards, and the analogies to Common Core will be clear. So this is your property. This is the California Department of Education's Career Technical Education Online. And there's a Common Core standard down here, and there's a number of California Career Tech standards, right? So these have been aligned. This activity, this design process activity, has been aligned to standards. And inside this activity, you can embed that Mars rover lesson, right? And now all of a sudden you can start making assertions that this Mars rover lesson is suitable for instruction aligned to these standards. And now if we share that back into the registry, this can go to Maine or New York or another state who can say, California has now told me something important about that resource. It doesn't just float free. It's now known to be connected into this larger learning process and connected to these curricular standards. This, to me, is one way out of the difficulty that we're in, which is we cannot do this on our own. We have to leverage the work of others in order to get as many suitable resources as we can in the hands of teachers. I'm just going to skip this slide just a little bit off topic. Again, Brokers of Expertise, a California Department of Education project. Here, what you're seeing is a bit of a richer stream, which is different people actually feeding into the Learning Registry and then showing. So not only do we know that the Mars rover is incorporated into that lesson plan we're looking at, you can click on either, but it was used to teach that by an architecture and engineering teacher. So now you know something significantly more. So this is just showing you how we can build up a picture of digital resources in a way that we haven't in the past. A lot of information here, but this is just showing you lots of different kinds of content that can be sitting behind what looks like a simple lesson here. Lots and lots of different. It was rated 3 out of 5 top best tools by teachers in Florida. It was included in discussion conversations. If you want to see those discussions, you can go to the site where those were. Right? So we're just connecting people together in important ways. How many times was it aligned? Because if you just have one teacher who's aligned to Common Core, just one state, maybe it's useful, maybe it's not. But if it's been aligned 214 times to a particular Common Core standard, well, now you start to get a little more comfortable that maybe this is a rational decision from a lot of different experts. So we have a traditional process of doing alignment, and I'm not saying that we should stop that, but we have a traditional process of doing alignment, which is around putting teachers in auditoriums over the summers and looking at resources and marking them up and then entering that metadata. It's a perfectly reasonable activity, but this starts pointing out that in addition to that, we can start getting access to clues, hints, or maybe even definitive information that these alignments exist and that we can access them for free, right? This is zero cost. This is people doing their job, telling us about what they're doing, and us being able to leverage that information to make decisions for others or let them make decisions. So I'll try to make this tangible in another direction because Google is where a lot of teachers go. This is a tool that we built to show the power of Learning Registry integrated with Google. So here's the story. This is classic, right? How many times has surface area and volume been searched on Google by a teacher? and you get some information. And some of this might be relevant, some of this might be advanced college level material, some of this might be unrelated to learning altogether, but you don't know. You click and search. It's a story that goes on and on. People spend a lot of time clicking and searching, trying to find the right thing, whereas someone else may have already found it. So in the Learning Registry, we can go, so what we did is built a plugin into the browser itself so that if you deployed this to your teachers in their browsers, this tool would become active and they could interact with it. So for an appropriate browser, you can choose this option, and this is working. We've built this. You click a box saying, show me all the standards alignment data that the Learning Registry knows about the things that I might be looking at on Google. Right? So I'm on Google, but I'm asking you to supplement with what might be known. And then when you run the search, you not only see Google, but then this plugin is injecting all the curricular standards that people have identified as associated with that resource that's coming from the Learning Registry. We highlighted it so you can see, and there's many ways to collapse this visually, but we highlighted it so you can see this came from the Learning Registry, this came from Google, and then Google's results continue on down the bottom. And where it doesn't know, you don't of course see anything. And our results are incomplete today. Of course, Google is extremely massive and we're extremely small. But where it's relevant, you can start seeing that you can really tip off a teacher that even if you're hanging around on Google, you can get some good tips. And as you want to adjust that plugin, you could, in fact, just simply take standards that are approved by the Department of Education in California, right? So you could say, we trust New York, we trust Florida, we trust California, not to name names, but we trust several states, and anything they say shows up in our plugin, or only things we've authorized show up in our plugin, right? That's configurable according to California. But I think there's some really interesting power as you start to think about this kind of management of information and providing sources of information that are bigger than the way Google does it. Activity data is similar, so you could see a user favorited this or marked it to watch it for future changes. Get some clues along those lines. All right, so I'll wrap this up. So right now we have a lot of early adopters, including some California projects, and we would love to find ways to make this more relevant inside California, so connecting this information more deeply in California. The specific point I want to make on the policy side that I'd love to get input and dialogue with you on is using this type of concept, using this type of approach requires two kinds of sharing, right? So there's the kind of sharing where you share information in one direction, right? So I will tell you what I know. And then there's the other side of sharing, which is I will take what you know and make use of it. And that second kind of sharing turns out in policy and politics to be harder. And so I just want to engage with you as you think through what does that mean and how could we possibly approach that in ways that are palatable. We can undertake those things, but also productive. And so specifically, as I mentioned, other states say, well, we were not willing to just take any teacher's random opinion. But we might be willing to work with other states to figure out if they're using a process of a standards alignment that is compatible with ours, and if we can trust them at some level to tell us what they know. And so that's the level of conversation that I'd love to connect with you on today. And whether it's Common Core or other sorts of standards or other sources of information and resources, that's the big pitch for Learning Registry. So if we can switch back to the slide deck, and we'll move on to badges in just a brief time. But yeah, just back to the PowerPoint to start. That's okay. So this is just a diagram to show what that might look like, but I think I'll just leave it for you to, this document will be available. So maybe there's some clarifying questions or points you want to make about this, and then we'll move on to the sort of badges conversation.
Well, I just had a question. So if